Hello everyone, welcome back to the studio. Today's highly requested video is going to cover the topic of how to expand your range. Today we'll be talking about 3 very important things that you can do to expand your range with ease, tension-free. So let's dive right in. The very first thing that we're going to tackle is breath support. So a lot of times students will come to me and just say, oh, I don't have that note in my arsenal, I can't sing that. And then we'll warm up and they'll be very breathy or they'll crack, which is usually a good indication that the problem isn't with their range, it's with their support. So what I will do is I will actually have my students start with an exercise called the birthday cake and candle exercise, and this one's always fun. So here's your birthday cake, here's your candle. I want you to hold it far enough out from your body that you're going to really feel the power of the air. And this is to teach your core to engage. So you're going to take a deep breath in, and then in 3 quick short breaths, empty your lungs completely. So it'll go like this. Again, in. And usually I have my students do that about 3 times because it's very exhausting for the core. But that teaches the students that power of the breath comes whenever your stomach actually goes in. Because a lot of times I will see, especially in my female students, reverse breathing, which is where when you breathe in, your stomach goes in, and when you breathe out, your stomach goes out. But there's no engagement of that core to keep the power of the breath. So really, for singing, the breath is opposite. When we breathe in, our stomach goes out, and when we breathe out, our stomach goes in, so that we have something to kind of crunch against that gives us that stamina and that power. So I will then have my students sing a note. Let's start with and watch in the mirror as their stomach actually goes in. Try to take that breath away a little bit so that the tone is on top of the air. And then I'll have them sing it breathy. And then and hold it for 4, then for 8, and try to keep that solid tone all the way to the end of the phrase. So the very next thing that we can talk about is the soft palate. There is a hard palate, which is the very roof of the mouth that you can touch with the tip of your tongue that doesn't move, and then the soft palate is behind that, and that's what raises when we yawn. So often the soft palate, when it's lowered, can act as a roof for our range. And then whenever it's raised, we get that nice point and resonance in our voice. So to show you the difference, lowered, and you can hear that one has just a little bit more of an openness to it, and you really start to notice the difference the higher that we get in our range. So it's literally like taking the roof off of your voice. And this kind of plays into the very next thing that we can talk about, which is singing with an open throat. So this speaks to tension, of course, and having our larynx in a nice neutral position, not too far lowered like at the very end of a yawn, or too high and nice and tight and bright. We want it to be in the normal position as if we're speaking naturally. So what I'll have my students do is make sure that their larynx is nice and neutral and that everything is flowing with the breath, and then we'll start with sighs or sirens. And I will just have them have everything kind of hanging nice and loose in the jaw. Everything is open in the back of the throat. And that soft palate is nice and raised. And then we'll start from the bottom of our range and go up. And then we'll go from the bottom to the top to the bottom, which is our siren. And then we'll go even higher and higher and higher in their range. So another thing that can kind of hamper us in having that open throat is the tongue. The tongue can often raise in the very back, closing off that nice openness. And that causes a lot of tension right here. So sometimes you can actually feel it if you have your students like touch right here. And everything's kind of high, and this is very tense, you can feel it. And then having the tongue lowered, everything is very soft and kind of malleable. So what I'll have my students do is bust out the spoon, and they'll take the spoon curved side out, place it on the middle of their tongue, not too hard because you still want freedom of movement in that tongue, but enough to where they can kind of feel that fight of their tongue against the spoon. I'll have them sing and feel that so that they can really train their muscles to relax, because really we want the tongue to be in that nice cradle-like position. So The front of the tongue will be gently resting against the back of the teeth. Then we'll have a nice little dip in the middle of the tongue, and the back of the tongue should be flat. So quickly to show you the difference, if you can see in my tongue, raised, and you can hear immediately the difference. One gives a nice roundness to it, and the other one is just kind of a flat tension sound to your voice. So make sure that the tongue is completely neutral as well. So those are the 3 tips that I have for you to be able to expand your range: breath support, soft palate, and openness in the back of the throat. I hope you find them helpful. As always, if you want more tips and tricks on singing, follow us here on YouTube or at Gabrielle Studio of Music on Facebook and Instagram. I will see you next time.